Welcome to the Infinite Life podcast. I'm your host, Katische Haberfield. This podcast is a journey of discovery as we learn how the soul evolves over various incarnations to understand all about the complexities of being a human being who has to bravely navigate viewing life as a non-dualistic struggle between good and evil through consciousness-raising experiences that test our valor.
Welcome back to the Infinite Life podcast. It's been a while, folks. For the next few episodes, I'm going to be pulling some content from the vault. And you may listen to these episodes and think, what has this got to do with past life regression, past lives, future lives, spirit releasement therapy, ghosts, and all the things that have been on the past 102 episodes? And the answer is nothing and everything. You see, at the moment, I'm on a pause, reevaluating where I want to take the podcast as a result of a number of things that have happened in my life. And there's a common theme here. The last 4 years, I have been focusing on the past. At the same time, I'll try to live in the present. At the same time, I'll try to raise 2 children. And what I found is that my spiritual questions began happening at a period of time in my life where there was great physical change, which was perimenopause. I'm now the other side, of menopause. And when you read and listen to some of the works of Clarissa Pinkola Estes, there are major changes that happen spiritually and physically and emotionally to a woman as she transitions through her life-giving cycles. Menopause is after you've stopped having periods, and if you don't want to hear it, close your eyes. But sorry, there's just a massive rain outside my window. A good sign. I'm 2 years past having my period, which is early, I think. 48 I am. But there's been major emotional changes, and I know how much my life changed after perimenopause. That's when I started going into sound healing, getting interested in crystals, doing spiritual trading. And since posting the last season of the podcast, quite frankly, my life changed so much due to changes in abilities spiritually that I have not been able to navigate yet. And so I had to shut it all down. I started to have visions that were so disturbing that I couldn't deal with it. And at the same time, I started dealing with the most extreme form of anxiety I've ever had. Now, a lot of it was due to the fact that I was spending so much time looking at and trying to answer the questions of why, to do with my own past lives and clients' past lives. But the other thing that I wasn't taking into consideration was the extent to which I was living in other timelines for my work and not taking care of myself in the here and now. And it all culminated in a massive panic attack in which I presented myself to the emergency room to deal with it. Since then, which has been a couple of months, I've been taking immaculate care of myself, going to the doctors, getting all checked out, confirming out that I'm in the stage of life menopause, taking some supplements for anxiety, and going back to some of the basics, which have been about breath, meditation, revisiting a little bit of Buddhism, Zen Buddhism and Tibetan Buddhism. If you go back to episode 1, you'll find that Tibetan Buddhism is the very first episode. And trying to understand the difference between when we live in the present moment and when we ask too many questions about the past moment. Also holding space for the paradoxes of all that and understanding emotionally how that has affected me at a stage in life when many women start to question themselves. And also many women start to experience things that they've never experienced before, spiritually speaking. So what I wanted to do with this episode was to take you back to a time before this podcast existed, because there's some really valuable messages in this episode. And before I started podcasting, I started doing a little bit of podcasting just in video format for Facebook and YouTube, and I called it Conversations with Katische. And today's episode is from the year, I think it's 2000 or 2001, with Jane Macpherson. And I just wanted to let you know that the information from this podcast discussion that was recorded back in 2000 and 2001, Jane and her husband then used for a chapter in their book, You Part 2, Thriving in the Second Half of Your Life. So you can go and Google that one on Amazon. It's You Part 2, Thriving in the Second Half of Your Life. And Jane Macpherson, who is a yoga therapist and teacher, and Campbell Macpherson, her husband, who is an award-winning author of The Change Catalyst and a change management consultant, amongst many other things. They wrote this book together, and Jane took the notes that she took from the recording of the episode that you're about to hear and then reconfigured and turned it into a chapter in You Part 2 about menopause. So you might want to go and grab a copy of that book and actually see how she used it in her book. If you want to find out more information about Jane, you can head to her Facebook page or her website or her Instagram. Jane Macpherson Yoga is her Instagram, and her website is janemacphersonyoga.co.uk, and you can find more information about her there. And I wanted to share this today because she answers a lot of questions that I had back then about perimenopause, when I was in perimenopause, and menopause that are relevant to me today. And I just wanted to put out there that I think this podcast is probably going to evolve so that it encompasses a whole lot more information, not just about who we have been, but about why we are as human beings and why we seek to learn and understand the whys and the hows about who we are and what some of the challenges of this life are, as well as the past lives. So I'd be really keen to hear a couple of things. One is, does that excite you? What would you like to see covered on this podcast? And also importantly, are you a woman who experienced intense changes with spiritual gifts at the time of either perimenopause or menopause? Because I think that's something that is really important, because in this lifetime, the conversations are opening up about changes in emotions and the body and how they affect our physical life, the changes that we make in our life, and also our spiritual journey. Also, if you go back and listen to the previous episode that I had with Vedic astrology, we talk about what happens when you turn 50 and the importance of that in Vedic astrology. So I think it's kind of weaving in to the whole piece. It's about this podcast is actually about what it's about to be human. And so if you're not female, but if you're a male, you may also like to listen to the words of this episode to think about the changes that the male body goes through during the same period of time between the ages of 40 and 60. Just as a female goes through massive changes, so does a male. And particularly with the pituitary gland and testosterone and hormones, which create major changes. So if you're a male and you are listening to this podcast or watching this podcast, did you have significant spiritual awakenings or heightened emotions that cause you to question everything about who you are in this life, who you've been in a previous life, what is the future holding for you? Because there are insights and some poses that, whilst Jane talks about yoga therapy and yoga poses, yoga Nidra for females, there's a lot there that can be interpreted and understood for males as well, who are dealing with changes in perceptions of themselves and the world and the way that things are around them. So look through some of the comments about mindfulness and breath work and rest and the importance of rest for yourself as a soul to see what messages come through. I'd love to hear if this resonates with you. And thank you once again for taking the time to join me on this exciting, sometimes scary path to navigate what it is to be a human living right now and in multiple lifetimes all at once. Namaste.
Welcome to today's interview with Jane Macpherson. She's coming to us live from the United Kingdom. Jane, thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate it's the start of your Sunday in the UK and you're still in a form of lockdown over there. So I appreciate you taking your time out of your routine to speak with us today. Now, Jane is a senior yoga teacher who has had over 15 years, more than 15 years, I'm sure now, Jane, experience as a yoga teacher, and she's a qualified yoga therapist as well. So I met Jane a long time ago in Sydney when we were both at totally different stages in our lives. And Jane has gone from the corporate world into the world of yoga and has a lot of experience in helping women in the United Kingdom and around the world learn to take care of themselves and learn to take time, become more mindful, learn how to incorporate mindfulness meditation into their life and learn to take up a yoga practice. Now, Jane, a lot of your clients, what age group are they in?
The majority of my clients are in their, it does vary actually. At the moment in this online world, I have a lot of varied ages. But I would say the majority of my yoga therapy clients would be from their sort of 40s up to their 80s actually.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. So yeah, women and men. But yes, that probably the majority of them would be. And I've had a lot of women who have approached me because they are having these, whether it be hot flushes or panic attacks, bouts of depression, joint pain, things like that, headaches, all sorts of things, which they couldn't really, they went to the doctors and the doctors are like saying, well, you can have an antidepressant or I can put you on HRT. But, there was a sort of degree of despair really, because a lot of the women that I know and work with, they wanted to take a little bit more control of their health and their well-being and didn't want to rely on a pill for them to do that. So consequently, this is an area that I've always been really, really interested in myself, and the perimenopause and menopausal time in a woman's life. I've worked a lot because yoga can help us on the physical level as well as the mental and the emotional level, and to a degree on the spiritual level, depending on where you are in your world, in your life. So mixture really.
And so can you explain yoga therapy a little bit to me, please, and how somebody comes to you for yoga therapy and how it works?
Yeah, so yoga therapy is, you're probably aware of yoga being, if you look at Instagram, it looks like you tie yourself up looking like a pretzel in the latest gear. That's not what yoga is. Yoga is a series of poses to help the body release tension and tightness and to repair and to heal maybe an injury, or to strengthen an area that's weak, or to produce, to develop flexibility in an area that's very tight. So that's one part of yoga. Then there's the breathing part of yoga, which is using different breathing techniques to help produce a balance in the body. So for instance, if someone comes to me and they're very anxious, their breath tends to be quite shallow and quick and rapid. And so to bring someone's breath down into the lower part of the body, for instance, to lengthen the breath, things like this. So these are yogic techniques to help them to come to a sense of balance. Then there's also the mindfulness. I'm sure you've heard of mindfulness. Everyone's heard of mindfulness. It's basically meditation, and yogis have been meditating for thousands of years. It's to bring this busy mind that we have, and in menopause, we wake up in the middle of the night thinking about all sorts of things. We have this sort of rumination that goes on, and it seems to be much worse at night. So meditation can help calm and to quieten a really sort of busy, chatty mind. So that's what yoga is. And what yoga therapy does, it sort of cherry picks bits of those different techniques depending on what the individual wants. So it's always done on a private basis, on a one-to-one basis rather, sometimes in smaller groups, but I only work on a one-to-one basis. And I've got all this like toolbox, if you like, of yogic tools, of techniques that I will then go, okay, that will be great for this person, that pose will be really good, that breathing technique would be great, this meditation or visualization would be great. So I sort of put together a tailored practice for this person that they are in control of, and they take that away and they do it themselves, and then we check in. And that's what yoga therapy does. So it's sort of, it works at the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual level as well, for the individual.
And do you do that only in person, or in this environment are you now doing that online as well?
I do it now online as well. Yeah. Whereas before I would obviously see clients face to face, I do still see clients online. It tends to be people that I know and people that know me. I have had a couple of new clients, and also I'd actually personally, from an ethical point of view, I feel that the online platform is not ideal sometimes for some people. So if someone, for instance, has severe depression, for instance, or an addiction or something like that, it's very, very difficult in some cases to actually, it doesn't really work with online. Similarly, some of my clients are older and they're having some issues with some tech issues. So
okay. Yeah. And I know that, for example, anxiety and panic attacks seems to be probably the most common association with perimenopausal, menopausal transition, aside from hot flushes. And you mentioned breathing and mindfulness. Often when we're in the middle of an anxiety attack, though, it's very hard to be mindful, isn't it? Because it's
really hard. It's impossible. So what yoga does, I mean, breathing techniques and meditation techniques don't have to be done sitting cross-legged on the top of a Himalayan mountain. I do a lot of breathing, moving meditation. Okay. So if someone is very anxious, so if you're suffering from, wondering what's going to happen with the kids, with your mom, we're right in the middle of all this. We've got elderly parents here because they're getting older and living longer, and then we've got the kids as well. We're stuck in the middle. The head can be full of stuff. And so to ask someone in that case to sit down, cross-legged, close their eyes and meditate is impossible. So I get people moving. As soon as you bring someone into the body and you actually notice how the body is moving and you notice how the breathing is synchronized with the movement of the body, that has an effect of bringing you into the present moment. And that's what yoga is all about. I mean, Patanjali says yoga is to calm the chattering of the mind, and that's what it is.
Yes.
So, it's
So I know a lot of women, including myself, find that sort of middle of the night is the time when suddenly you might bolt awake with a hot flush. Maybe that's what's jolted you awake, but your heart's racing and then your mind's also suddenly racing, and you can get quite panicky. So given that you're usually in the dark and you've got family around, but you're desperately feeling panicky, how do you suggest that you incorporate movement in the middle of the night? What sort of tips can you give people to get into their body?
It's because that's the last place you are when that happens. You're not in the body. Your mind is in the future or it's in the past, and it's as I say, it does seem to be heightened, doesn't it, when it's dark and quiet. And I give a lot of my clients little movement, as in they will sit upright in bed, and they might just check in with how the body's feeling, and just do a little bit of movement. But the main thing is, if you're in bed, some people find it very beneficial to get up and to go downstairs, make a nice cup of herbal tea, not caffeinated tea, and just, and do a little bit. Things like restorative yoga is extremely beneficial. So menopausal, perimenopausal women, I think the effect of rest, and I don't mean sleep, I mean rest, is hugely underestimated. And so I say to my clients, first of all, don't worry if you wake up in the middle of the night. That's what happens. That whole myth about you go to sleep and you should sleep a solid 8 hours, it's a myth. And we have the deep sleep cycle. I get onto insomnia and sleep. It's a whole different, it's not a different subject actually, because this is what we're suffering from. But, there are sleep cycles, and as we get older and the hormonal changes that we're going through, it affects our sleep. So it's okay, first of all, to feel like that. So the second thing is, given that it's okay to feel like that, then just accept that there may be times in your day, if you can, where you take some rest. And just because you're not asleep doesn't mean to say you're not resting. And actually, sometimes it's more restful doing a restorative pose with your legs up the wall, or lying back on some cushions with a lovely eye pillow on your eyes, and focus on your breathing and focusing on where there's tension in your body and just letting all that go. That is more restful than lying awake in bed, tossing and turning, thinking about all these things. So I always say to my clients, first of all, don't worry. Secondly, if you want to get up and put yourself in a restorative yoga pose.
Okay.
And it can be with the legs up the wall, and you can feel your spine, and you can move around a little bit. And I do things like breathing, meditation, guided yoga nidra. Yoga nidra is, are you familiar with yoga nidra?
Not yoga nidra, no.
Okay, yeah, so it's a guided, profound relaxation technique that takes you into your subconscious. And so I do guided yoga nidra. I've got a couple on my website if you just want to go in and check it out. And it's just having something so that the mind can focus on something. So whether it's my voice going on about the guided meditation, or whether it's focusing on your body, lying in the floor with maybe some lovely music or the eye pillow, it's just being able, because the mind needs to focus on something. To say you need to clear your mind is impossible.
Yeah.
It's like harnessing the wind. But if you have something, your body, your breath, a meditation, someone else's voice, some music, whatever it is, that's all good. So that just takes you out of this whirring of something that's in the past or something that's in the future, and brings you into the present.
Yes.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does answer my question. Thank you. Yeah, I know that a lot of people do feel shame when they wake up and they haven't had that full sleep, and it kind of becomes a catch cry, doesn't it? I'm so tired.
Yeah.
And so we feel a bit shamed by it. So it's good to hear someone else say, it's all right, you need to.
Okay.
Yeah.
And by the way, don't get me started on Fitbits. You know, the Fitbit thing that you wear, which monitors your sleep, don't wear it, because that just adds to the neurosis.
Yeah, great.
You'll get up and go, oh, look, there's a lot of spikes in this, in my night. Well, actually, it's because you moved.
Yeah.
We move when we're asleep, but the Fitbit then goes, oh, she's awake. And that just adds to the neurosis. So yeah, don't do that. Just get rid of them.
Yeah, I don't have one, but complete sense to me, because the more you obsess about how little sleep you get, that's what your brain is focusing on. And I find that I have been learning to give myself permission to rest more and to take naps, and to expect uber levels of productivity. So, and that's quite a big mindset change, because I mean, I was brought up with parents who were always achieving and always doing things, and you did the jobs first before anything else, and then after all the jobs could relax. And I frequently have to remind myself that it's okay if nothing gets done today, but you've had a nap, or you've put some relaxing music on, or you've just given yourself some downtime.
Absolutely. And it's only about, I mean, when I feel tired, I'll take about 20 minutes. That's it. 20 minutes and I have a slump. I think a lot of people do, 3-4 o'clock. And I just lie down and just do some breathing, go into a restorative yoga pose for 20 minutes. And that's actually enough for you to recharge. Doesn't take a lot. So yes, but you're right. I think there is this guilt that we should be always on the go, getting all the jobs done, and who cares if the ironing doesn't get done, frankly.
Yes, I haven't inherited.
As you can see from my wardrobe.
I don't. The only thing we own that needs ironing are the boys' school shirts. That's it. It's like,
exactly. That's all fine. Just the front as well is fine.
Yeah, that's it. That's right. Now, a question for you about cycles in terms of menstruation. And some people, like for me, the first sign for going into perimenopause was I went from, well, I was originally on a Mirena, and then I decided to take that out because I've been single for so long. It was ridiculous to have something in there monitoring my hormones when there was no use for it anyway. But I went from being regular after getting that all out of my system to then being completely irregular, having almost no period, but then going through, a lot of people know that I went through a cycle of absolute flooding So I'm wondering if you could explain to me again, and possibly the restorative yoga techniques would be the best. If you're experiencing irregular menstrual cycles, or a new cycle that's really painful or really heavy in the bleeding, when you have changes in your cycle, often you don't feel like exercising because you have reduced energy levels. So how can yoga help, and some poses to help with our cycle if we're experiencing cramping or excess blood or anything like that?
Okay. The first thing is recognizing that your energy is low, and that's what yoga helps you do. It's called santosha. It's the ability to accept what's going on.
Okay.
And that's really tough. You know, when you're starting the perimenopause, you know, it's a start of when we are not able to have children anymore, and that can have, you know, quite a lot of emotional and psychological effects on us. So that's the first thing, accepting this is happening to us, and it's okay, and it happens, and it's very natural and normal to feel like that. So that's the first thing. And the second thing, yes, I wouldn't, so if you are having heavy flows and flooding, the last thing you are going to feel like doing is a strong Ashtanga yoga practice or vinyasa, strong power flow, and stay out of the hot yoga, by the way. Perimenopausal women should really, really avoid the hot yoga. Why would you want to make yourself hotter?
No, thanks. It's never actually appealed to me.
Don't. And you know, hot yoga is really, really popular. And I've done some hot yoga, and you know what? I was just like, it made me hotter. It didn't make me cooler. It made me so much hotter and miserable. So, but of course, it's up to any individual. But if you are getting hot flushes, I would maybe stop that for a while. So there are poses that you would avoid. You would avoid strong twists, for instance. Things that after you come out of a yoga pose, there's a release that could increase the blood flow. So you want to be a little bit careful with things like that. Things like strong inversions, headstands and shoulder stands, if that is in your practice, then I would avoid those as well, because it's something called apana in yoga. Apana is the flow out, down. And your body is naturally, you know, everything is flowing out. So to take everything upside down, you're actually going against what your body naturally needs to do. So I wouldn't do a long inversion. What I would do is restorative yoga to get your energy there. It's very calming. If you're getting cramps, for instance, what really helps is to put you're lying down on your mat, for instance, is to put a weight like a nice heavy pillow, or a warm hot water bottle, or a warm, you know, sort of a bag full of soft. I've got a bag full of eye pillows, and I used to put that on my tummy because it was the weight, and a little bit of weight on the lower belly, sort of in between the tummy button and the pubic bone. It can get very tight and very so anything that gives you a little bit of weight, and then you just breathe into that weight, and that softens all the muscles around the diaphragm and all the muscles in the abdominal area. So that can really help. Lower backache as well. Lower backache is quite a common thing, because everything is linked to the uterus and to cramping. So, you know, again, if you've got someone at home who can help you, go into a child's pose, and then again put this pillow or this weight or your hot water bottle on your lower back. Just by breathing, interestingly, because the diaphragm is linked to the muscles in the lower back, just by lying on your back, taking your hands onto your tummy and breathing into your hands means you're bringing that breath down into the lower part of the body, and you're using the diaphragm. So I don't want to get too anatomical with you, but if you start to use the diaphragm, which is linked to your lower ribs, which is linked to your lower back, as the diaphragm, as you breathe in and out, you'll feel your lower back relax and release.
Okay.
So is that helpful?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. But you know, sometimes, the only thing I would say is sometimes if you're feeling lack of energy, yes, resting is important, but there's a difference between lack of energy because you really are feeling very tired, and there's lack of energy because you're just feeling very, not lazy is the wrong word, but very slothful. You're sort of like, oh, do you know what? I can't be bothered. I'm going to sit on that sofa and just collapse. Sometimes doing a bit of yoga that brings energy up can be a good thing as well. So just bringing the arms up and doing a couple of, you know, triangle poses or warrior poses, or just feeling the energy come up, and think about energy coming up, which will then give you more energy in a time when perhaps you're feeling a little bit sluggish. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Sluggish. That would probably that so it's really connecting with how you're feeling. You know, is my energy low because of, frankly, I didn't sleep last night? In which case, absolutely rest. Go into a restorative yoga pose. Or is my energy slow because, frankly, I haven't moved a lot in the last week and I need to get everything moving? Do you see what I mean? The difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's all about being connected.
Yes. And I think that for me personally too, perimenopause brings us into a lot more awareness of our cycles and sort of how we might fluctuate in energy during the month, which we may have never paid attention to before. So I guess I'm sort of doing a lot more exploring about that, because it was sort of like I'd never paid attention to anything other than when I had a bleed. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was the only time in the month that I considered it. And I've been listening to a few podcasts and things recently where they'll be like, well, no, actually you need to understand how your entire system has energy during the month. And I was like, oh,
changes all the time. It
Yeah.
changes all the time. When I was trained to be a yoga therapist, I had this wonderful teacher, and I remember her saying there was a big circle. She did a huge sort of put a big ribbon and made a big circle and divided it into 4, into summer, winter, spring, and autumn. And she said, okay, where you are in your cycle, I'd like you to stand in which quadrant you are. So, you know, some people were at the beginning of their cycle, so they would be in spring, and then mid-cycle summer, and so on and so on. And it was very interesting. Now she said, okay, all you women who are in that perimenopausal stage, where do you think society insists you stay? And of course it's summer. It's like the energy is up there and everything's fantastic and you're feeling bonny and bright and bright-eyed, and actually it's the last thing you want to be. You know, and it's actually recognizing that we go through these different seasons, if you like, in our cycle of how we feel. And I think it is really, really important. So if we're in winter and we're feeling, you know, we just want to curl up in a little ball and we just want to wrap ourselves up, and then that's okay. That's okay. And then other times we will feel in the summer, and that's great as well. But just recognizing that we change, and every time in yoga, every time you get on your mat or you get into your body, you just, I ask my clients to pause and just check in, see how you're going, how you're feeling, and however you're feeling, then you adapt your practice to it's not the same practice at all every day. My practice changes every single day, depending on how I feel.
Yeah, I mean, just the mere concept of summer or winter, like, is new for me in the last 2 weeks in terms of your own personal cycle. So it's like it's something that I'm just like, really? Okay. Because we just we're taught to plan our months around tasks and achievements and things to do and lists, and we don't ever really pay attention to our energy, and when our body is potentially more energetic, and so those are the times to schedule your more energetic work, and that you go through flows of wanting to connect with people or retreat, and you know, you do your connecting work at connecting time. And so that's that is obvious to you, but brand new to me. So which is quite a revolutionary thought, really, especially if you work from home or you're self-employed or have some flexibility with your work, is to learn to, I guess, let's not admit, but to honor the fact that you actually are a woman and not a robot, and you're not a male.
Absolutely.
And
it all comes back to acceptance.
And
honoring is the right word, actually, Katische. It's honoring where we are, and you know, we have these amazing bodies, and we have things are happening to our bodies physically and to our minds, you know, mentally, and to our emotions. We're going through the same stuff that our teenagers go through. You know, that they go, you know, when a teenager and they're feeling grumpy, we sort of treat them with kid gloves, and we tiptoe around them, and we make them lovely food. If you're a good mother, I never did, but you know, that's what they do. That's what you do. You know, as a perimenopausal women, we're not allowed to stay in bed until midday. We're not given lovely, you know, we're not tiptoed around. We've got to keep performing. We've got to keep doing what we do. And I think that puts an enormous strain on us. And sometimes it's, you know, well, it's not. And then we need to actually put ourselves at the forefront now. And I think this is why I said at the beginning, it's a huge opportunity for women at this stage in our life, I like to say it is like the third sort of, as women, this is a huge opportunity for us to say, do you know what? We're going through this really exciting time in our lives. We don't need to nurture the kids anymore. They should be up and off or doing their own thing. We're obviously still going to look after our parents and look after our partners, but actually it's our time. That's why you get a lot of women who go back to university and study. A lot of women decide maybe the relationship they're in is not where they want to be. A lot of women go, actually, I've always wanted to follow my more creative side, and will maybe start a new business or start painting or something that they've always loved doing, but they've put that on the back burner for the last 30 years, because 30 years, because they've had to. So I just think it's very liberating. It's feminism in a new form, really. I guess. Well, that's how I feel it anyway.
Yes, yeah, it is exciting. But the interesting conversations that I've had with people when I have been establishing my presence to talk about and write about and interview about perimenopause is that, there are people who are very obviously going through perimenopause, and it's really obvious by some of the things that they're experiencing. But then there's a whole bunch of people who are in the right age set who haven't even got their antenna up there on the radar of what they may be going through, because they see that as something that you don't go through until you're old, and they see themselves as not old yet, because menopause is the more talked about rather than perimenopause, and so therefore they might associate menopause as an older, a lot older than them. We all still stay the same age in our own minds, irrespective of what our birth certificate says, and we may feel 35 when we're 45, or 45 when we're 55, or whatever, but our body ages when it wants to. And so for me, I've been quite mind blown with the number of people who are totally even unaware that this transition exists, because they were just waiting till the day that they suddenly had no period anymore, when actually the perimenopause is such an encompassing and can be quite a long period of transition for a woman. Lots of things going through, and being aware that you have these hormonal changes that can cause changes in mood, that you may be angry a lot for some people, and that is not to do with that, it's actually a hormonal change, and it's part of the process. I guess I remember my kids saying to me, "Mum, you're really angry a lot at the moment." And I was like, "No, I'm not. Absolutely not angry. What are you talking about?"
I mean, you're right. I mean, some women sail through it, and they don't have, all the delightful things that go with hormonal changes in the body. And fantastic, good for them.
Yeah.
But most women will feel some or a lot of the symptoms, and some will take painkillers and get through it, and it will really affect them. So it does depend on the individual, but I think what is healthy is that we're talking about it.
Yeah.
And that the more people like you are getting, talking about it in your podcast, and the more books you read, and there are quite a lot of books around now, which is good. Knowledge is a good thing. So if you've got a little bit of knowledge behind you, and you think, okay, this is why I'm feeling really grumpy and I want to stick a knife in my husband, or this is why I'm feeling utterly drained, then it can be reassuring to know actually this is normal. So you're right. So I think it's good if women are more aware of it, and whether they have the symptoms or not, at least they're a bit more prepared. And there's a lot of information. There is a lot of information out there. There certainly is over in the UK. It's quite different. The women are talking about menopause a lot now, a lot. In fact, the BBC probably about 6 months ago did a whole week where they did interviews with women, and the women presenters on the breakfast show were sharing their experiences. And actually the British Menopause Society is very, very active here. So I think it's interesting that you feel that that it's not being talked about very much in Australia, because that surprises me, if I'm honest.
Oh, and exactly, because I actually started following the BBC on all social media to get information. So
okay. You know, you've
on-
got Marianne Gluck, who's an Australian. I mean, I think she's German born as well. But you know, she was huge. She wrote that book, It Must Be My Hormones, and she started the whole bioidentical hormone therapy push that women should not be just given synthetic one size fit all HRT. You know, so I can recommend some books if you want me to.
Yeah, that'd be
Drop you a
great.
line with some books, which I have found personally very useful. This is probably one of the best books, which is this one, The Second Half of Your Life.
Okay, haven't read that one.
This is she is Jill Shore. This book I give to my clients who are having issues, and she wrote that in 2011, and I just think it really did help me a lot personally.
Yep.
And I use it quite a lot. So yeah, I agree.
Fantastic.
With you.
Excellent. I will get that book because I'm in a great big reading phase at the moment, trying to information. That's just my academic geek needs to read.
The great thing about this book, and the great thing about I think what we're talking about, is that what is really quite scary, I think, is when you go through these changes, you don't feel very in control. This stuff is happening to you. And actually that can be really scary. I think what is different is if you change the mindset is that, okay, there are some things we can't control. We can't control getting the aging of the skin or your graying of your hair or the fact that your metabolism is dropping. You know, it's like taxes. You just got to accept it.
Yeah.
So, but there are lots of things that we can change. There are lots of things we can change, and that we can change, you know, our physical activity. We can change how we are, what we do. You know, if we're in something is not serving us, whether it's a job or a relationship or a situation or a location, whatever it is, actually we could do something about it. Yeah. So, and I think it's taking control of stuff that we can change that is really empowering. Always been really interested in women's health anyway, plus the fact I'm 55, so I'm well and truly, I'm still going through the perimenopause, but I don't think it is a midlife crisis, by the way. Yep. I like what Jill Shore says, it's a midlife evaluation rather than midlife crisis. It's a huge opportunity for women, to go from being the nurturers and the looking after us to actually looking after herself.
Yes, absolutely.
And I actually think it's an extraordinarily exciting time for a woman. And so when I talk to my yoga therapy clients, it's in a very sort of positive, let's change the attitude, and let's to have a real shift in how we are looking at ourselves, our bodies, our emotions, our minds. Let's let ourselves feel the way we're feeling. Yes. And we use our yoga to enable us to do that. So and we really we focus on, you know, for instance, what's working right now, what do they love about themselves right now, and what, frankly, they can change and they want to change. And it could be they want to change their husband, they want to change where they live, they want to change their job. You know, women go from being, you know, the whole grumpy old woman thing. There's a degree of that because we've got a little bit more testosterone now than we had. You know, our estrogen and our progesterone have gone, and our testosterone is going up a little bit. So we are becoming a little bit more bulshy. And I think that's a really positive thing, which I love. Yes. And I know I am. So much to Cam's distress, but no, you know, he knows what he bought into.
Now, Jane, I know that my kids are about to come home in a few minutes. So I just wanted to ask you to just briefly let us know about your retreats. And what sort of the role, because I have people that come to my website who are mostly from the UK and the USA. So what do you think the role of a retreat plays for a woman at this stage in her life? Because, you know, back when we're younger, we use them kind of almost as a status symbol. I'm off for a retreat for the weekend. And when we get older, perhaps, and the kids got more focus, we don't find to go to them. And time to find the time or the money, we always prioritize the kids. How important do you think it is to carve out time in your life for retreats? And what do you see as the fundamental thing that women walk away with after taking the time to go to a yoga retreat?
I think, and we've sort of touched on this already, any opportunity or an opportunity to take some time out for ourselves is essential. whether it's 20 minutes to have a rest in the middle of the day, or getting on a yoga mat, or going for a lovely walk without the mobile phone on, to give yourself some space, particularly at the moment. I mean, we're talking, there's a lot of anxiety and a lot of emotion out around us, and just to be able to give ourselves some space to calm the mind, I think, is enormously important. And that has benefits physically and emotionally. So therefore, a retreat, whether it be a 2-day retreat, a 3-day retreat, or a week, you really feel the benefit of doing that, because you don't need to be anywhere. You don't need to think about anything. You are fed. You are looked after, you are nurtured, you are cradled, you practice your yoga physically, you do physical yoga, we do a lot of meditation and breathing. And the difference is extraordinary. So, for instance, I was lucky enough to get to India this January, just before everything all kicked off. And I had a lot of frazzled women who arrived. And the difference in those women over the week, they went from being withdrawn, worried, on their phones a lot, to being then don't really care about the phone, relaxed, sleeping better. We ate really well, of course. And they really came back to themselves, and there is time for reflection. And I think for a woman to take some time out at this time, when she's going through all these changes, this change requires reflection and soul searching. And a retreat, yes, you might be able to do it if you sit on your mat for 20 minutes, but actually you need to sort of unwind tight muscles. You need to be nurtured. You need to be nourished with good food that you don't have to cook. You need to be able to just be able to be, just to sit and read, or sit and watch what's happening around you without the phone going, or the kids, or whatever it is. You can be absolutely with yourself. And to me, that is enormously nourishing and good for us. So to answer your question, a retreat gives you more of what we try and do on a yoga mat every day.
Yeah.
But you don't have to do anything. For me, that's the greatest thing about a retreat. Someone else has organized everything.
Yeah.
You eat, where you sleep, your yoga, your breathing, your walks, your trips, if you want to take trips. I have, it's very interesting. So the women that arrived at my yoga retreat in January, they was like, right, we need to go to the market, we need to go shopping, we need to go for that walk to the waterfall. And it was really interesting. So we started on the Sunday, by about Wednesday, they're like, do you know what? I don't think I can be bothered.
Yeah.
I just like to sit here and I'm going to listen to the birds, and I'm just, and you go from a yoga class to breakfast, then another yoga class, and then to a delicious lunch. And then you have a lovely time for some free time. And then you have a yoga and meditation. Yeah. And then you have a lovely dinner. And then you can go to bed. Yeah. And it's heaven. And it's heaven. Wonderful. It's just the simplicity of being on a retreat as well is enormously refreshing.
Helps you. Your question? Yes, it does. It sounds like also when you leave the retreat, you're better able to cope with
Yes, I have to say, some people who leave a retreat leave with very different, they go home and they make changes, and quite dramatic changes. I've had 2 ladies this year who have left and have made dramatic changes in their lives.
Yeah, just some space to think through things.
Well, they've had time to think, time to reflect about it. You're also, with a retreat, you are with like-minded people. People who go on a yoga retreat, they've made a decision to take this time out for themselves.
Yes.
And so the company that you keep may not be the company. I mean, a lot of people don't know each other. They come on, they may come on their own. They don't, maybe not come with a friend or a partner. They come on their own. So actually you have this, it's called a sangha in yoga, a community that is very supportive. So if someone doesn't want to talk at dinner, that's all okay. You respect each other's space. And I always say this at the beginning of a retreat, we are here together, but we are also here for ourselves. And please respect each other, and everybody does, and the kindness and the love and the compassion that is the atmosphere of these retreats, it's quite humbling, actually. It's great.
And do you think that anyone can go to a retreat? Like, do you need to have an existing yoga practice, or?
Nope, absolutely not. Absolutely not. In fact, I have people who have never done yoga to people who've been doing yoga for all their lives. So no, I mean, some retreats, I mean, I from my point of view, no. There are some retreats which I know, and the yoga teacher always says this, they are for more advanced yogis. So you can guarantee the physical practice will be quite an advanced practice. I don't do that. I run a yoga class, but I split it up between people. So we all do the same practice, but the more advanced yogis might do more different variations or hold the poses for longer, or, and I'll introduce. But no, I've had people who've never done yoga. I've also had people who have got chronic pain or chronic illness as well. And they don't just come for the physical, more people come for that mental space and that ability to be still and in their own bodies, to practice some meditation, to stretch, of course, because that releases tension, as I've said before. But yeah, people come for different reasons. You don't come to one of my retreats and you get fed really well, and it's all about looking after and nourishing ourselves. It's not about punishing ourselves.
Yeah. No, I just thought I'd make the point, because I know that I'm spending less and less time on Instagram, for example, but you generally see people whisk off to Bali to do a yoga retreat, and you mentally categorize them as fit, as people who've always done yoga, as I couldn't go to that because I'm not that kind of person. So
yeah, no, that does worry me about the visualization of yoga. That really does worry me. The Instagram yoga is not serving yoga, and it's not what yoga is.
Yeah,
it's not about being dressed in the best yoga gear, in a complicated balance pose. That is not what yoga's about. Yoga is about releasing tension and tightness in the body and the mind. You need to do both. You need to release tension in the body so that you can be calm in the mind. I have lost count of the number of people since lockdown, because I've started online yoga classes, who have said it has been such a sanctuary for me. It has been really good. It's helped me calm down. It's helped me stop worrying. It's none of this, I'm really glad I'm doing your class because now I can do a handstand. It's not the physical. People are connecting to yoga not for the physical, but because of the mental space it's giving them, and the calmness it's giving you. And it does concern me, I must admit, it does. But I mean, I've been teaching yoga for a long time, and for me, yoga is for everybody. I've actually, funnily enough, I've had a lady who's just joined me, and she's 82.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Never done yoga before.
Okay.
Brilliant.
There you go.
And she loves it. I mean, yes, there are things that she finds and she shouldn't do, and she's respecting her body and accepting that's where she is. But
Perfect.
It's fantastic. I am certainly going to be doing yoga until I fall off this perch.
Well, on that note, that gives us a wonderful way to frame it, that yoga is for everybody, and particularly helpful to everybody going through perimenopause and menopause. And I just wanted to thank you so much for your time today, Jane, and invite people to connect with you at Jane Macpherson Yoga at your website. And you've got a Facebook page, and I think you're on Instagram and YouTube as well. So I noticed that there's a few videos, a few yoga classes they can have a go at on your.
Yes, please do. Yeah,
on
please
your
do.
website.
Yeah.
And
thank you so much, Katische. It's been lovely talking to you.
Yeah, thank you, Jane.